I think that's how I thought about it for a while too. You opened my eyes to this, but like,
Say that again.
I said my eyes are closed. What's common pickleball advice that you hear that you disagree with?
Wow, there's how much time do we have? People have a misunderstanding. They believe I'm against the mechanics. No, I'm against mechanics first. Oh, are you asking me a serious question about who I am? Okay, so I'll get real vulnerable. So I think one of the biggest struggles that I have is I actually might cry right now. It's pretty crazy, actually.
All right. Okay, that will be the intro. Okay, whoever's editing this, let's make that the intro. Let's just zoom in where you're touching my ear. What lesson took you the longest to learn in pickleball?
That's a really good question. Probably patience, actually. Probably is I especially at the senior pro level where I felt like I could speed up a little quicker than if I was playing the young bucks. I think now that the senior pro level is getting even better and better, speeding up too quickly is actually hurting me where it wasn't before.
Okay.
Because everybody's a lot better and their hands are quicker and they know patterns and stuff, right? So I've had to become a lot more patient, but like intentionally patient, like aggressively patient and making dinks a lot stronger, not just getting them in, because I still ultimately want to speed up as fast as I can and try to be the initial attacker.
So I have a friend, my buddy Tyler. He's about a 4-0. I'm gonna tie it back to what you just said. He's about a 4-0, and I play with him pretty consistently. I play with him left-handed often because I'm actually probably a little better than him with my left hand. Sorry, Tyler. I hope you're not watching this. Let's clip that.
Post that.
But he and his other, our like a 4-0 group come over, we'll play, and then when he plays with me, he can't play the same way. Even though I'm playing left-handed, I see the game a little better. He can't play the same way he plays with me as he plays with his other 4-0 friend. Oh, he could,
right.
But actually what's happened was he went and played a tournament. He practiced with me for like 3 days prior to the tournament, and he was being a little more cautious because he knew I was going to know where he was going. I would be on his counters. Then he went and played a 4-0 tournament, and in the beginning of the tournament, he was trying to play so cautious, and he actually didn't do his normal aggressive early style, which would work against his opponents often, but wouldn't work against higher level players.
Right.
So you said you had to be more patient. Can you talk about I've been thinking about this a lot, the balance between like Tyler's playing with a higher level player. He has to play slightly different than he might play when he's playing with a lower level player. And you said something similar, like if you're playing better players, speed up at different times. So how does somebody who's say 4-0 and maybe getting into a better game or playing against maybe a weaker opponent approach patience? Because patience, typically people think patience means passive.
Right.
Patience means don't speed up. Right. What does it really mean?
I think yes, that's a really good point actually. Patience doesn't necessarily or shouldn't ever mean passive. It means smarter.
Okay.
Right? It means more intentional. It means more like I need to know more about the two players on the other side of the net to make kind of smarter decisions. I think when we play at a lower level, I don't think we have to be that intelligent, that intentional, right? They're lower levels, we're better, our hands are faster, our attacks are better. I think we can just pull whenever, right? But like thinking, just put the best of the best. Just put Ben in front of one of us, right? Like you can't just randomly attack him. You have to attack him in very specific moments to very specific spots based on what's happening. So I think being more patient kind of is code for being smarter.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so being smarter with your, maybe specifically, probably the whole game, but specifically with your attack choices.
Yes, like we need to know where, when, why, more at the higher level, like to the nth degree.
Okay, so go more specific on that. So you're playing 4-0 versus 4-0, girl has an aggressive style. Can you give a specific example about a when, where, why here? And then let's say they get into like a 5-0 game.
Right.
Where does it change? Maybe using the same example.
So what I see a lot of at the 4-0 versus 4-0 level is players just pulling off of the bounce, whether it's a smart pull or a not smart pull, because the lower levels barely let anything go, so they can just go straight, hard body shot. That's what I see all the time, right? 4-0 to 4-0, just going center mass, and I'm going to just try to clean it up, right? And hope I can get 6 out of 10 of those. Where 4-0 versus 5-0, you go center mass against most of these dudes now. Most are hitting backhand first, and then hot paddle, they're going to smoke you. So it has to be, can't just be off the bounce center. It can still be off the bounce. Does the bounce have to be higher? Do you have to hit a little bit more roll? Does it have to be a little more off pace? And then it definitely has to be to micro spots on the body. It can't just be body.
That's interesting. So like versus, I think that's how I thought about it for a while too. You opened my eyes to this, but like,
say that again.
I said my eyes are closed. But like
clip that.
Yeah, I think my thoughts were typically line, middle, cross.
Right.
And I think one thing you opened my eyes to through discussion and as I've been mentoring you is
say that again.
As you've been mentoring, it's just like there's actually more than 3 spots. There's like 92 spots throughout the court, and there's even height. This is something I've more recently been thinking of. To your point about the wear, is there's a spot and then there's also a height choice, and then they go together in different. I mean, you could like those math problems that people would say, like how many combinations can you make out of these 4 things? Right. And the answer is close to infinite. It typically is infinite. And actually, I have no idea. I'm trying to make that up as far as math.
You just try to sound really smart.
It's super smart. Yeah. Let's actually come up. If you can come up with an example that's an infinite, it doesn't matter. But there's numerous opportunities and choices you can make about where you attack. And for the longest time, I only looked at line, middle, cross.
Right. And I think now in today's game, actually, like space isn't space anymore. I think space is an illusion, meaning back in the day 2, 3 years ago, right? We used to always attack space because space meant an opportunity. Now I think space is being covered. I think space is almost a bait more. Whether they're intentionally, and I don't think intentionally thinking, I'm giving you space to bait and so I can counter. I think some do that, but I think like with Ben, for example, like he has his late forehand because of table tennis, so that space that looks open, right, is never open because he can catch it late behind him, where most of us have to be early, right? Like you and I talk about it all the time, like if you see space, be very aware it's probably not there.
When you speak these things out, it's like at that level it might be there.
Yes.
And my way of thinking of it, I think through our conversations, has been at a 4-0 level when you see space, I think it actually is there more often, whether they get a paddle on it or hit it out. But at the higher level, like the pro level, often when you see space means they're about to close, like you're saying, close and counter hard. Right. And so you almost have to, you've mentioned this quite a few times, like I know what you're thinking. I know that you know that I know that you know, or whatever. And so like if like, a perfect example, I am going to pull an off the bounce backhand or even a flick backhand out of the air from the left side. Right. And often I might see in the corner of my eye, my peripheral vision, the middle is open. Yep. But if you're a good player playing, if I'm on the left side, you're also the left side player, you know your coverage is the middle. Right. So if I go to flick the ball and then you come to cover, so then that space was the illusion. Right. I think at 4-0 level, a lot of times that flick, you might get away with it more often. But when I'm playing against you, well, probably not you, but when I'm playing against most people,
especially me, that is locked.
Right. But if I know that there's space, I know that you're going to close the space, I have to go behind you or to a different location. Correct. I think that's where there's nuance to the whole space. Now, sometimes space is just space, just hit it through the middle. Sure. That'll definitely work.
I mean, at any level.
People are going to be in the comments like, but I hit it up the middle.
Exactly. Right. And I also want to hesitate, but I don't want to say this number equals this, because I know a lot of 4-0 players that cover the court better than a lot of 5-0s. Yeah. Right. They might not be as consistent, and then vice versa. I know a lot of 5-0 players that can't cover the court to save their life. Right. And so I think and this is again where it comes to be like, we have to be smarter. We have to be more intentional. We have to be paying such close attention to who's on the other side of the net and what can I get away with and what can't I get away with. And then what do they think about what I think I can get away with against them? That's happening at the 4-5 level.
And most of the time it's
players that I'm playing.
I think
it's maybe teaching, probably the guys you're not working with.
Well, would you say I play a lot of 4-0 pickleball actually?
That's where you should be.
I haven't moved up yet. So, but I do have there's a group of guys in Phoenix. I hurt my wrist. I've been playing a lot of lefty. I played 4-0 pickleball for the last 4 months. So you teach it. Yeah. I get to see it from a playing perspective. But that was such a ramble. I forgot what I was going to say.
I know that you know that I know that you know.
Okay. Would you say it's more at the 4-0, 4-5 level? Is it more subconscious or more conscious that they're considering the other players' thought patterns or
I think it has to be trained. I don't know that it's subconscious until you start training it. Okay. I don't think that's something that just happens. Yeah. And again, we can't just throw a blanket over everybody and say it's never subconscious, right? But I think first it has to be trained and then it becomes more of a subconscious level. I mean, I work with 4-0s, 4-5s to 5-5s, and I'm telling you, like the level varies, the intentionality of each level varies. Some 4-0s, again, are better than 5-0s.
Yeah.
Some 5-0s are better than 4-0s, right? And I've seen some 5-5s that are actually more intentional about the shot that they're hitting better than some pros.
Probably depending on how they've viewed the game or teaching they've got from somebody smarter. Yeah.
And now because the game is so hot, the paddles are so hot, I think players, as we've seen in the last couple months, are dinking a few times and then literally just trying to hit you as hard as they can.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of sad, because it's going to take a lot of the I'm going to go here, I'm going to work you here, because sometimes we don't even have to now.
Yeah.
I set you up and just any kind of 50-50 ball, I can just tag you and you can't get out of the way.
Yeah.
Right? Unless you're super smart about the pre-contact cues that are given, and players still aren't, as you've shown in your videos, that players still aren't even aware of the vast majority of them.
Yeah. Let me go off that for a second. So paddles getting poppier, hotter, good or bad for the game?
Hate it. Because I think it takes a lot of the talent, a lot of the skill away. What I've said and what I've told every time I get my paddle tested for spin, whatever, like I say what we should do is definitely cap the power. This last week, I had this perfect backhand speed up, totally fooled him. He got this, am I allowed to say the brand down here?
It's Selkirk.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't one of those, it was another brand. Totally fooled him. He got his paddle like barely, like his way behind him, and he hit a winner.
Yeah.
Like, and I just think it's ludicrous, right? And not because he beat me, although I'm coming for you. I just think it's taking a lot of his talent away. I think they need to cap power and just max spin. Like as much spin as you want, who cares? Because then you're gonna see who's talented. Right? Then you're gonna see who has touch, feel. You can still hit enough power to make the game fun to play.
Yeah, well, that makes me think. So I've done some tests, not with some of the hotter paddles or delaminated paddles, and so the numbers I got from like a ground stroke, baseline to baseline, was 1.41 seconds. Of like, I'm not hitting it as hard as I could. But then you take, let's say I hit this exact same swing from baseline to baseline with the more power, one of the really powerful paddles, it probably drops to 1.1, 1.2. But that's not even as realistic from a distance standpoint. Singles it is, but in doubles, it's more kitchen to kitchen.
Right.
And so from kitchen to kitchen, the time was 0.25 seconds on my test. So that's 0.25 seconds from paddle to paddle on a speed up to a counter, and that was with a not hot paddle.
And what was it? Did you measure it from the counter back to the attacker? Like that's where it's taking to a whole nother level, right?
Yeah.
It's not just because if players start to pay attention to these pre-contact cues, you're going to leave every ball out. You're going to win 8 out of 10. Those balls are going out. It's the counters that are blowing people up. Like all you have to do is just be good enough to get paddle to ball, and it's exploding past the initial. That to me isn't natural, beautiful talent.
Well, in the one of the big arguments for say the men's game versus the women's game, a lot of people say the women's game is more exciting because there's longer hands battles and there's more of them where the guys respect each other's hands. This is the argument people make. There's more respect for the hands, that they're not just gonna hit a speed up and end the point with a counter.
Right. Yep.
So that is a common argument. I think the fans enjoy the hands battles more than anything. It seems as if we would be going the wrong direction, is that the thing we want more is actually longer hands battles. I don't actually personally think it's that exciting to see a rip from the baseline, ball goes into the net over and over, because they just can't handle it, and they're going for balls that are going out, because the timing is so fast, it's hard to react and respond and decide. So it's a bad thing.
I think it's a terrible thing. And the guys, the women aren't all on the line hitting counters here, right? They're maybe on the line to way behind the line hitting counters behind them with their 2E all the time. Maybe some are out here, but the dudes are right here.
Yeah.
So you're even closer than the line.
So you're even taking more time away.
That's right.
Yeah. What's common pickleball advice that you hear that you disagree with?
Wow, there's how much time do we have? Oh my God, I'm such a coaching snob. Wow, you opened the form. You gave me that question? Really? Let's cut and work this one out.
I think that's going to be the opening of the video.
That should be the opening. Oh my gosh. It used to be hit your third drop and sprint to the line.
Okay.
I'm still hearing that too much. I think it's getting better though. But I think the most common is don't do X because it's a low percentage shot. And X could be anything from a drive to a flip, below your shins to an off the speed bounce. Like it's not about should you or shouldn't you. It's about can you get the results based on who's in front of you? Like my quote unquote attack ball from down here is if I do that against Ben or Riley or who, it's going to get smoked versus if I do it against somebody else, right? So is this right or wrong? The answer is who's in front of you. I think too many coaches are teaching don't do X. They're like putting a binary rule on it. You should never, and you should never, and you should never, versus like, does it work for you? Can it work in front of that player, right? I think coaching is way more art form than it is science, right? Because we have all the information everywhere, right? You YouTube anything, you can get proper information anywhere. But can you take a student and take that student and coach that player based on who he or she is, based on, again, past, future goals, what they have in front of them, their intelligence, their all of that. So I think there's too many binary, just black and white don't do's. I think that's the number one thing that just drives me bananas. No, I got another one.
Okay.
Because this goes crazy. Okay. The like fixing challenges, trying to improve errors based on, I got a lot. With the first coaching advice based on technique or mechanics. It should never be about technique or mechanics ever. First, we can back into that. It should always be about feel, visual, intention, period, the end, period. When you make a mistake, it should never be about paddle angle, grip pressure, but it should be about, you should be asking the question about, what did you see? Why did you go there? What was your feel? What was the vision? Where was your mind's eye picture? Like that, base something around that, and then back into, well, your paddle then looked like this. Because I'm telling you, I've seen 30 years, dude, paddle angle, grip pressure, all of that is based on vision and feel.
So,
or lack thereof.
You said a lot there. So I've follow up to the second point about the vision and feel, and then I'll go back to the other one. Something I've thought a lot about recently is, I feel like you've nailed this on the head, where a player will miss a shot, and then you just observe this on the court. Yep. And after they miss the shot, they walk back to the baseline, and you see them whisper something or murmur, or see them literally right?
Yeah.
And that's if you go one step even behind.
I don't mind that part.
Okay.
If you're feeling the shot, I'll do that with certain.
So what if but even before that, as a player is thinking about getting better faster, one of the thoughts I've had and started to write a little bit about is, even before the feel, I think it's the intent, and what an intent would be like positioning. I've used this phrase, like, your position informs your shot options. And the very obvious one is, like, if you hit a third and stay back, you're definitely, your options are different than if you hit a third and charge.
Right.
So before someone's even considering feel or technique, is that accurate? Do you think they should actually be considering, was I in the right position to even think about feel before I thought about technique? Or I think what I'm getting at is, I just see players in the wrong position. And it's very obvious at the lower levels, 3-5-4, they're just in the wrong position all the time. Right. If the ball gets popped up, they stay at the kitchen line, they never take a step back. A guy's hitting an overhead, it's over. They should step back. Wrong position. Should players actually turn their attention to position?
I think they're together.
Okay.
Right. Intention means shot selection based on who they are, right? And core position, I think, are one subject.
Okay.
Because you can only do certain things from certain core positions, right? Okay. So I think those need to be taught like simultaneously, right? And you can do those simultaneously because you can feel where you are, and you can feel, and all feel means is connecting what you see in your mind's eye to your hands. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Well, we are conditioned to think technique and mechanic and believe that is the way to success, right? But everything that we do, I didn't answer your question.
Yeah, I'm very confused.
So long answer being longer?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yep, long story longer.
I think your core position and the intention behind the shot based on core position are together.
When a player misses a shot on their way back to the baseline in the 7 seconds between the next point, what's one question they might, again, like when you're on the court, you want to get super deep into your thoughts in that way, but let's say it's rec and you are being a little bit more conscious about your improvement. What's one question they can ask themselves in between points based on an error they just made? Did
I have a detailed intention of what that shot looked like? And then, do I know why I tried to hit that shot?
I'm guessing a lot of players might ask that question and then not know the answer, or the answer would be no, I didn't, and I don't know where I was hitting it.
Correct.
But they're not going to probably have an answer, I'm guessing, by the next swing. So what do they do next in order to
They should have it. The goal is to have the answer.
Okay.
Right, and then you can take, because what they don't understand is, as long as you have that answer, all of your technical stuff becomes so much easier. The execution of the shot then becomes almost a given, right? Because I'm not saying you just sit on the bench and just visualize the whole. You got to put reps in, and you got to know the proper mechanics. People have a misunderstanding. They believe I'm against mechanics. No, I'm against mechanics first. Mechanics are last, right? Mechanics don't mean anything if you can't answer that question. After you miss that dink or after you miss that counterattack, where were you going with it and why? the end. And if you have an answer, we can work on the others. Like the why, like the actual execution of the mechanical reason you missed is easy, but it's not going to do anything. If I saw that you went like this or you went like this or whatever the technical reason you missed, it's not going to be fixable if you in real life under stress. If you don't know automatically where you were going, what it looked like, and why you were going there, then the mechanics don't mean jack in real life. Under stress.
Does that where you're going and why, so that actually connects back to your previous one about like you said sprint up to the kitchen no matter what, and one of the big mistakes is people ask you said should I do that or should I not do that?
Right.
Can you connect that to what you just said about like the where and why? Would those two be connected?
Yes. Give me a better question. That was a terrible question.
I'm trying to tie it back to that. I was hoping you would pick me up out of that bad situation.
No, we're going to leave you stranded.
I was explaining that and I was like, I really hope he's getting it because I know you're not.
Because
I'm definitely not. People ask a lot of, in most sports, I came from basketball, they ask a question hoping you would give them an absolute answer. And most of the time, there's not an absolute answer to the question they're asking. It's more of a, well, yeah, what was your intention?
Right.
What were they doing?
Right.
That comes into play more. So I don't even know if I have a question here now that I'm speaking. I'm word vomiting.
On that, so I'll piggyback on it a little bit. I think there are definitely times they hit a third drop and sprint.
Yeah.
But you better know why, and you better know.
Okay, so maybe that's the connection.
Okay.
Maybe the connection is understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Yes, based on who's on the other side of the net.
And I think that's the connection between those two. So,
and I think that's what's being missed. I keep cutting you off, but I think that's what's being missed from a lot of players and definitely a lot of coaching. Is we talk about we should do this based on this, but I hear very few coaches talking about the specifics of the players on the other side of the net, like they're like more than just strengths and weaknesses. What are their patterns? And players just default. Well, you can't do that at the 4-0, 4-5, 5-0 level. You can't get into the 5th level chess moves until I'm a pro. Yes, you can. It just needs to be trained. You can look at a 4-5. You're a 4-5. You can look at a 4-5 or a 4-0, against another 4-0 and say, he likes to do this under this situation. When I hit a drop here to his backhand, he likes to do this. Or his forehand, he likes to do this. Off the bounce, he likes to do this. Out of the air, he likes to do this. And he likes to hit it here the majority of the time. Then, when big pressure, stressful moments come on, he will always do this the majority of the time. You can do that at a 4-0 level. You just have to train it. You just have to be intentional about it.
How does a 4-0, 4-5 player who, let's say they play 2 hours, let me give you a person here. They play 2 hours, 5 days a week. And it's kind of like, they don't really want to drill it. They're not all in on pickleball, but they want to improve.
Yeah.
They have a family, they have work, and they only have 2 hours every day. So they're choosing to play more often than they're actually going to drill. You might not recommend that as the get better fast approach, but how do you recommend they improve what you just said in a scenario where they're playing 2 hours a day, 5 days a week?
Just pick a topic that you want to improve on in that framework, not a technique, mechanical topic.
Well, give an example.
I want to learn more about what my opponents do under this situation.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to only focus on this situation. For example, when I hit a drop to this player's backhand,
which is pretty controllable.
I think it's fully controllable, especially on the drop.
Yeah, because
it's really easy.
Dinking might be harder if there's not a lot of dinking that takes place in your game, but drops are going to happen.
But you're always going to hit a third, right? Yeah. So you can either pick drive or drop. And when I hit it to this person's whatever, what does he like to do? And just pay attention. Just one thing.
That's really good.
Just pick one guy. You don't have to pick everybody. You don't have to pick both players. Just pick one player. But then you have an obligation to hit that player. So you can start training your brain. When I hit it here, he went here. And just no more than that.
And it's interesting to imagine if a person, I know a lot of pros, even I'm thinking about my own training. Most people in general don't have a plan when they train. They just go out and play.
Just hit a bunch of balls, right?
But they're not frustrated enough to like actually make a change because they're like, oh, I'll figure it out tomorrow.
Right, yeah.
But it is interesting. I mean, if you did that, say 5 days in a row, you chose one topic. I'm going to drop it here today. I'm going to maybe drive more of my balls there tomorrow. 5 days later, you probably might have improved more than you would have in 14 days just because you had.
And I believe it bleeds into other aspects of the game where you won't even need to be as intentional. You'll just start learning to pick up on other patterns without even trying to pick up on other patterns.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just a way of training how you view the game. And the way we should be viewing the game isn't through our lenses. It should always be through their lenses. What do they like? What don't they like? What do they do in this situation? And how do they view us? Like that's where the training's got to start, not on our side of the net. And that isn't being taught, right? Because most coaches don't know how to do that. I'm just being blunt. They only know how to teach their side of the net, which makes total sense, right? But the next level, this is why Ben is so good. I mean, he's not the fastest, strongest. He's by far sees more than anybody else.
I was listening to a podcast this morning. Andy Roddick has a new podcast called Served. He had Brad Gilbert on.
Okay.
Which I love listening to Brad Gilbert. And
Winning Ugly.
That's one of my favorite books I've read.
Second best book that's been written.
Yeah, the first one is Pickleball Mindset. Coming soon. Actually, by the time this video posts, it'll probably be out.
Yep.
We'll put a link below. You can get the book there. Amazon?
Yep.
Okay, we'll talk more about that.
Yep.
Brad Gilbert was talking about when he was coaching Andre Agassi, and even when he was coaching Roddick, a lot of times like Agassi would go for risky winners.
Right.
And he's trying to fill up the stat sheet.
Right.
And I mean, it happens in pickleball all the time too. It's so relatable. But and he said, Andre, you don't have to go for risky winners. If you make less than 10 unforced errors and you just play smart, put the ball to the right spot, don't go for the off balance winner, nobody will beat you.
That's right.
And then when he did that, he won more, and when he didn't, he lost. And it's so relatable to pickleball in my experience. You go for the highlight shot.
Yep.
And it works 1 out of 10 times, and it works that one time will carry you to do
it
right 20 more times.
And I say every time, those kind of shots are going to win you points.
Yeah.
They are not going to win you matches.
Right. The occasional, don't go for the occasional, go for the consistent.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, Ben is as boring of a game as you got. But if you got out here and wreck and allowed him to show you the 99% talent he had, he could do all that stuff. Yeah. But he knows that he's going to lose more than he wins.
Yeah.
It's a long game. It's a long-term math game, right?
Yeah. I love reading your social media posts.
Thank you.
And just that one time. The rest of it sucks.
Thank you. Why do I fall for it? Like, I got the hook.
Oh, no, they're thoughtful, but I think the thing I think about when I read yours is like, one, they take a second to consume and they're thoughtful and it's hard to implement. And when you read somebody on social media long enough, you kind of get this perception of like, does this guy ever make a mistake? Or this guy's like knows everything. That's just, I think, in any authoritative position on any field. So I've often wondered reading your posts about a story of when you recently struggled, because you don't often talk about when you struggled in something, but can you think back to a moment where, I mean, obviously the stuff you talk about is hard to do. When was it hard for you?
You're asking to be vulnerable for my peers to watch.
Well, if you get vulnerable, they'll buy your book.
I think what's been harder, more challenging for me recently, and recently meaning the last half of year into this year, like, so the last half of last year into the remainder of this year, and it's probably be forever, is pattern recognition against me. There's only so many things you can do, and I'm not talented enough to like make the same shot look 50 times different, right? And so I think with certain shots that I use, I think opponents know how to defend them better, counter better. I'm having less success numbers wise, which is making me have to do it more intentionally and smarter than I was in the past, where I could just pull a certain shot and know I'm going to go 7 out of 10 success rate. I think that has been a struggle in terms of, damn man, like I have to go kind of reconfigure my thought process, and then also learn like a couple different shots to add on, so I don't have to lean into this one shot to win matches. Because before, if we lost the game, I would just lean into this one shot and we could win the game. And now I've had to kind of lean in to other shots and really try to be creative and just try to be smarter and not so impatient, right? And then just trying. Okay, so I'll get real vulnerable. So I think one of the biggest struggles that I have is, I actually might cry right now. That's pretty crazy, actually. I think one of the bigger struggles I have on tour is letting, because I like a lot of the players that I play against. I like the majority of them, but I have this intense competitive edge that I'm trying to constantly keep, that I wish that I could show these players / friends the other side of me, like the kind of that, because I'm actually kind of a nice guy, but I don't let anybody really see it, because I believe that I'll lose my competitive edge. And right now the competitive edge is driving me more. I struggle with that a lot, actually, like staying hyper focused and losing friendships or being misunderstood, I think, a lot. And that's difficult for me, where I think a lot of people don't care as much about, at least senior pro level, right? They don't care as much about the W as they do about being liked. And ironically, like, I don't give a what anybody thinks of me. And at the same time, I only care what they think of me. Does that make sense? Like I have certain goals and so the intensity and focus and discipline and rituals that I go through, as exhausting as they are, part of me doesn't want to do them so I could be friendlier. And especially to the guys. The women, I love the women. It's easier to be a little more friendly to them because I don't like, there's no ego here. But a lot of the guys, I'm afraid to show them who I really am because I feel like I'll lose my edge.
Who are you?
I have no idea. Is that uncomfortable for you? It made you feel uncomfortable?
That you don't know this right now?
Yeah.
No, not at all. No. Were you being serious about the I don't know who you are, or do you?
Oh, are you asking me a serious question about who I am?
I'm curious.
Oh, I thought you were joking.
Yeah. I said that kind of in a joking tone because I panicked. But I am curious.
Yeah. Who am I? I'm actually a really sensitive dude who likes most of the people out there, who wants to be friends with most of the people out there. Like, I'm a walking contradiction because most people think I'm most of the competitors think I'm an when I'm actually the opposite of that. I just don't let them ever see it.
Cool.
And that's really hard. Like, it's hard and it's not hard. I want to win. I want to get the W so bad because I have goals and I want to just be as competitively fierce as I can, because going to a tournament and walking away, like if I were to walk away 2-2 or 1-2, like just doesn't feel good anyways. But I feel like if I showed everybody who I was, then I would lose that edge quite quickly. Maybe I wouldn't, but that's the thing that drives me to be out here training as much as I do and be as intense as I am during the tournament.
If I shared all the things that you just shared, and then you were coaching me, but I asked you the question, should I change that?
Right.
How would you coach me?
I would tell you, do not change that. I would first ask you okay, that's a good question. I would first ask what reverse engineer what's most important to you in this stage in your career, right? Like, to be loved and liked and have people see who you truly are, or to go out there and try to win as many matches as you possibly can during the time you have, because you know it affects a macro part of your life, career, business, daughter's future, wife's future, etc. Like, what's the intention behind your training?
What's the answer for yourself?
For me, I'm not changing.
Yeah.
I'm not changing. You can think I'm an asshole as much as you want.
So you just, will you just like accept like this emotional conflict?
I already have. I told the player after a tournament, we walked off the court and we ended up winning, and he was such a nice guy on the court after every shot. Great shot. He said, nice shot, Dayne, nice shot. Mircha, like, he was such a good dude. He laughs and smiles on the court. And I told him, in private after the match, and I'm jealous of that. I wish I could do that and still play well.
Yeah.
I can't. And so then I have to prioritize playing at my peak and accept that I'm going to be misunderstood, and accept that the majority of especially male players, maybe some female players, just think I'm an Am I allowed to cuss on this?
We're bleeping that out.
Okay, yeah. Probably think I'm a jerk.
Yeah.
And I'll just,
bleep that out too. Bleep that out too.
Yeah. That's tough word.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. It's something you and I have talked about, is every player has to find out how they play their best.
Yeah.
And there's probably consequences to the attitude they bring.
Right.
And I've gone through emotionally a similar thing. And obviously we all gone through a similar thing, or thoughts. For me, it's, obviously it's the fun. I am a fun personality. I like to make people laugh.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this recently. Is that the same guy that helps me play my best, or is it the more focused, guy who, to use your word, jerk, that will actually play better? I think I know an answer. I think I need to be who I am in my core as I'm playing.
Right.
Have a relaxed concentration,
right.
A relaxed focus. With, I used the term, you helped me get to this a while ago. It was like, I'm still discovering if this is actually how I play my best, but being myself, which could mean if someone makes a comment, I could turn into the crowd and engage for a moment to honor the moment. Right. But being able to flip back into the other moment that's taking place in front of me, which is actually the more important moment. Right. So that's a tough journey everyone's going through. Is how do you play your best? How do you play your best against people? You said it, your friends. Right. That's a weird thing about pickleball.
So let me make this clear. I'm not going on the court, nor do I advocate anybody going on the court and intentionally try to be an a-hole. Right. Never do that. And I've actually backed off of that quite a bit, because in the beginning, 2-3 years ago when I first jumped on the scene in 2020, I was purposely trying to be that. Yeah. Just because I thought it would affect them and bother them and make them play worse, and I was intentionally trying to be that guy. But I've realized through trial and error that that's not needed, and I don't think anybody should intentionally try to be an a-hole. But my quiet, intense focus and not saying great shot after every time, like that is misunderstood as me being the a-hole to them, right? And then that's the line I am still learning how to walk.
Yeah.
How do you play your best and still stay true to who you are?
It's really good.
I think the answer is totally different for every human being on the planet.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I almost got a tear out of me.
Wow.
I actually did. I actually almost went there.
Yeah, we don't usually cry on the unemotional stuff. I wrote down 127 topics for us to talk about. I thought we were going for 9 hours. Wow. But that's probably, again, if you guys want a podcast, he's begging me. It's probably 6 months away. But
don't you think? I think it would be a good show.
I think it
would be a different show.
I think if we had you on occasionally, it would be a good. Let's transition to this. And why'd you write a book?
That's a great question. Number one, to add value, period. Just to add value to pickleball players' games, number one. I've been trying to write a book for over 10, 15 years. And when I met Jill Martin, AKA Pickleball Yogi, we were texting back and forth about her training and my training. I was helping her with her mental game, and she was helping me with my physicality, my balance and core strength, all the stuff that she trains, the amazing stuff that she trains. And by texting back and forth, she said, hey, why don't we write a book? And I said, absolutely not with you. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I did not say it.
She's actually behind camera right now.
I said, absolutely. I said, for some reason, I didn't even hesitate. And I said, sure. And so to add value, number one, plus there's a story that I wanted to tell about concepts that I'd learned in 30 plus years of teaching tennis and all other sports, and then the mental performance piece of that. And then when Jill got involved, there was another side, because I did a podcast years ago where it's called Elevating Beyond, and we got on, and the first episode was just on phones, right? It was just terrible audio. It was just like, we don't know what we were doing, and we just told his jail and drug story and my almost commit suicide story, and just the deep, deep, darkest part of our lives that were at the time leading us to something better. And that thing hit 500,000 views in like 7 seconds.
Wow. With
horrible, and we were like, and we said, oh my gosh. And so we decided in that podcast that we would have really successful people come on, entrepreneurs, athletes, whoever, but they were not allowed to talk about their success until the very, very, very end of the show, the last 5 minutes. They were only allowed to talk about the truth and the grind and the pain and the hell that they went through to get there, because no one at the time, and still they aren't talking about that, right? And so that show was incredible, and the viewership, like people gravitated, because most people are thinking, I'm getting to your question, I swear. Most people think that they're struggling and grinding on their own because they turn on Instagram or whatever and they only see people taking pictures, selfies with Lamborghinis that aren't even theirs. And so why did I write this book? To add value. When Jill got involved, though, I knew that there was another layer to this where I wanted, and we agreed, although she didn't want to at first, to show her struggle. When we started, she was a 3.5 and now she's a 4.5, to show and to be super vulnerable with the process of becoming a better player, not becoming a pro, just becoming just the normal amateur grind who wants to get better. I thought there was a lot of value in, these are my beliefs and my concepts that I teach, but let's like allow you to show the world who, like what it looks like to celebrate, to fear, and to doubt, and to argue, and to say it's not going to work, and this will only work with you. And so as we started writing, getting deeper and deeper into it, I just knew that this was going to bring giant value to people at home that are sitting thinking they're the only ones that feel crazy nervous in tournaments. They're the only ones that get serving yips. They're the only ones that don't know how to hit a third at 9-all. And I just thought Jill would be able to show that perfectly, and I think that she did.
And where can people buy that?
People can buy that on Amazon. It released April 3rd. And we're going to go around the country too. We are working out details to give clinics based on the book.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dayne, I don't care what others think of you. I think you're a great guy. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming on the YouTube channel.
Yes, sir.
That's who you are.
Yes, sir.
I really hope this recorded.